Claims made by Alnur Musayev, a former KGB officer and ex-head of Kazakhstan's National Security Committee, who alleged in a February 20, 2025, Facebook post that Donald Trump was recruited by the KGB in 1987 under the codename Krasnov. Musayev claimed he served in the KGB's 6th Directorate in Moscow during that period, a unit focused on economic counterintelligence and, according to him, recruiting Western businessmen. He stated that Trump, then a 40-year-old real estate developer, was targeted during his first trip to Moscow in 1987, ostensibly to discuss a hotel project. This isn't the first time a former KGB official has suggested Trump was cultivated by Soviet intelligence. In 2021, Yuri Shvets, another ex-KGB spy, told The Guardian and featured in Craig Unger's book American Kompromat that the KGB began grooming Trump in the 1980s, exploiting his perceived vulnerabilities, vanity, greed, and susceptibility to flattery. Shvets claimed Trump was fed anti-Western talking points during his 1987 visit, which he later echoed in a full-page ad in U.S. newspapers criticizing NATO and U.S. foreign policy, positions that aligned with Soviet interests at the time. However, these claims come with significant caveats. Musayev's assertion lacks corroborating evidence beyond his own statement, and his career timeline raises questions. Biographical records suggest he was with the Soviet Ministry of Internal Affairs, not the KGB's espionage-focused First Chief Directorate, in 1987. Shvets' account, while detailed, also relies heavily on his personal testimony and lacks declassified documentation. Trump's 1987 Moscow trip is well documented. He was invited by Soviet Ambassador Yuri Dubinin, but no concrete proof has emerged from Soviet archives or U.S. intelligence to confirm he was formally recruited or knowingly cooperated. The idea of Trump as a Soviet or Russian asset has been debated for years, fueled by his financial ties to Russian oligarchs, like the 2008 sale of a Palm Beach mansion to Dmitry Rybolovlev for $95 million and Donald Trump Jr. His 2008 comment about a disproportionate amount of Russian money in their assets. Yet, investigations like the Mueller probe found no conclusive evidence of a conspiracy between Trump and Russia, though they didn't examine the 1980s timeframe. So yes, former KGB officials, Musayev and Shvets, have claimed Trump was groomed, with Musayev specifying the codename Krasnov. But without hard evidence like KGB files, which Musayev says are now privately held by a Putin ally, these remain unverified allegations, intriguing yet inconclusive pieces of a long-standing narrative about Trump's Russia connections. Donald Trump and Russia, a decades-long relationship, fueled by money and influence. For over 4 decades, Donald Trump's financial struggles and business dealings have intersected with Russian money and interests, raising questions about whether he was cultivated as an asset by Soviet and later Russian entities. From the 1980s, when Trump's real estate empire faced repeated crises, to his presidency, where his rhetoric often mirrored Kremlin talking points, a pattern emerges of mutual benefit. Russia provided financial lifelines when Trump was sinking, and Trump, in turn, offered a platform for anti-Western narratives. This article examines key moments: Trump's failing businesses, Russian purchases of his properties, the curious case of a Florida mansion, statements from his son Donald Trump Jr., and the striking similarity between Trump's and Russia's messaging to explore this controversial narrative. The 1980s. A struggling mogul meets Soviet interest. Donald Trump's relationship with Russia traces back to the late 1980s, a period when his business ventures were faltering. By 1987, Trump had overextended himself with high-profile purchases like the Plaza Hotel and an airline, deals that would soon lead to bankruptcies in 1991 and 1992. Amid this financial strain, Trump made his first trip to Moscow, invited by Soviet Ambassador Yuri Dubinin to discuss a potential hotel project. According to The Art of the Deal, Trump saw this as a business opportunity, but some, like author Craig Unger in American Kompromat, argue it marked the beginning of a deeper Soviet interest in Trump. Unger suggests the KGB viewed Trump as vain, narcissistic, highly susceptible to flattery, and greedy, traits that made him an ideal target for cultivation. At the time, the Soviet Union was crumbling, and its intelligence apparatus sought influence in the West. Former KGB spy Yuri Shvets, interviewed by The Guardian in 2021, claimed Trump was targeted as early as the 1980s due to his financial vulnerabilities and willingness to engage with Soviet elites. While no concrete evidence proves Trump knowingly collaborated with the KGB, his trip coincided with a period when American banks were growing wary of lending to him, a vulnerability Russian money would later exploit. Failing businesses and Russian lifelines. Trump's financial troubles deepened in the 1990s, with multiple bankruptcies leaving him toxic to U.S. lenders. His Atlantic City casinos, once a cornerstone of his empire, hemorrhaged money, racking up $4 billion in debt by 2002. As Foreign Policy noted in 2018, no U.S. bank would touch him after these disasters. Yet Trump staged a remarkable comeback, fueled in part by foreign capital, much of it from Russia and former Soviet states. One key player was the Bayrock Group, founded by Soviet émigré Tevfik Arif. From 2002 to 2011, Bayrock partnered with Trump on projects like Trump Soho, offering him lucrative licensing fees, 18 to 25% of profits, simply for lending his name. This arrangement came at a time when Trump was desperate for cash, suggesting Russian-linked entities were willing to prop him up when others wouldn't. Additionally, a Reuters investigation in 2017 found that at least 63 Russians or individuals with Russian addresses bought nearly $100 million in Trump-branded properties in Florida, often through opaque shell companies, a hallmark of money laundering. The Palm Beach Mansion, a $95 million mystery. Perhaps the most glaring example of Russian intervention is the 2008 sale of Maison de l'Amitié, a Palm Beach mansion Trump bought for $41 million in 2004 amid a previous owner's bankruptcy. By 2008, with the U.S. housing market in free fall and Trump's casino business filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, he sold the property to Russian oligarch Dmitry Rybolovlev for $95 million, more than doubling his investment in just 4 years. The deal raises eyebrows for several reasons. First, the price defied market logic. As the Seattle Times reported in 2017, it was $13 million higher than the previous record for a Palm Beach home, despite the economic downturn. Second, Rybolovlev never lived in the mansion, later demolishing it and selling the land in lots, with the northernmost fetching $34 million, far less than his purchase price. Trump himself bragged about the flip, telling reporters in 2016, "I bought the house for $40 million and I sold it to a Russian for $100 million, including commissions." Critics, including Senator Ron Wyden in a 2018 letter to the Treasury Department, questioned whether this was a legitimate sale or a financial favor, possibly tied to money laundering or political leverage. Rybolovlev, a fertilizer magnate with a Forbes estimated $5 billion fortune in 2008, was later listed by the U.S. Treasury as an oligarch close to Vladimir Putin, amplifying suspicions. Donald Trump Jr. As admissions, a disproportionate cross-section. Trump's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., provided a rare window into the family's reliance on Russian money. Speaking at a 2008 real estate conference in New York, he said, "Russians make up a pretty disproportionate cross-section of a lot of our assets. We see a lot of money pouring in from Russia." This candid admission, reported by eTurbo News and later cited by outlets like The Washington Post and Business Insider, came as the Trump Organization pursued projects in Dubai, Soho, and elsewhere, ventures bolstered by Russian capital when American banks had turned away. Trump Jr.'s remarks align with other family statements. These quotes, made before Trump's 2016 presidential run, suggest that Trumps not only welcomed Russian investment but depended on it during lean years. Identical talking points. Trump and the Kremlin beyond financial ties. Trump's rhetoric has often echoed Russian propaganda, a synergy that intensified during his political career. From the 1980s, when he criticized NATO and U.S. foreign policy in terms mirroring Soviet critiques, to his presidency, where he downplayed Russia's 2016 election interference, Trump's positions have aligned with Kremlin goals. For instance, in 2016, he suggested both sides were to blame for Russia's actions in Ukraine, a stance foreign policy noted resembled Putin's framing. Similarly, his reluctance to mobilize against Russian cyber attacks, despite U.S. intelligence confirming Moscow's role, contrast with Putin's denials of interference. This alignment isn't coincidental, critics argue. The Washington Post in 2019 listed 18 reasons Trump could be a Russian asset, citing his financial history and refusal to confront Moscow head-on. Former KGB officer Oleg Kalugin, quoted in House of Trump, House of Putin, described the Russian mafia, intertwined with the government, as a tool to cultivate figures like Trump. Whether deliberate or opportunistic, Trump's parroting of anti-Western narratives has been a boon to Putin, who celebrated Trump's 2016 victory as a blow to U.S. dominance. Conclusion: a symbiotic relationship. The evidence: Trump's 1980s Soviet outreach, Russian money rescuing his failing businesses, the overpriced Palm Beach sale, Donald Trump Jr., his admissions and shared talking points, paints a picture of a symbiotic relationship spanning decades. While no smoking gun proves Trump was a formal Russian agent, the The financial and rhetorical ties suggest he was, at minimum, a useful figure for Moscow's interests. As the Moscow Project noted, Donald Trump may not have any business in Russia, but Russia certainly has business in Donald Trump. Whether groomed intentionally or drawn in by necessity, Trump's story underscores how money and influence can intertwine across borders, leaving lingering questions about loyalty and leverage. Sources: Foreign Policy: How Russian Money Helped Save Trump's Business, December 21, 2018. The Washington Post: A History of Donald Trump's Business Dealings in Russia, November 2, 2017. The Moscow Project, Chapter 1, themoscowproject.org. Reuters: Russian elite invested nearly $100 million in Trump buildings, March 17, 2017. The Seattle Times: Why did a Russian pay $95 million to buy Trump's Palm Beach mansion? September 2, 2017. Business Insider: Donald Trump Jr. in 2008 said a lot of Trump assets were in Russia, February 21, 2018. The Guardian, via Daily Mail: How Russia began grooming Donald Trump 40 years ago, January 26, 2021. Politico: Trump and the Oligarch, July 27, 2016. The Washington Post: Inside Trump's Financial Ties to Russia, June 17, 2016.